Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I've learned as I've grown into the person that I am today. And, I wanted to do something different over here today. I wanted to address comments that you guys had left me, but I was reading through the comments and nobody's asking me any questions. Nobody's asking me to address anything. I kind of miss doing that over here. So if you guys have topics that you want me to talk about, or you have questions that you want me to answer, just based on life experience that I've had and just my perspective, not expert perspective, obviously, please leave it in the comment section below. But as I was going through here, I did find something. It kind of made me think of something that I wanted to talk about the other day on my drama video, and I was thinking, okay, so anyway, I was going through the comments, and I was reading this comment, and hold on just a second. This person said, I made 6 months sober from alcohol yesterday. One of the small things that kept me going was to be able to come here and tell you. And I just want to say, first of all, congratulations. That is amazing. I say in my videos a lot that, it's interesting because people be like, wow, you've been sober for 28 years and 9 months, or you've been sober for over 20 years or 28 years, right? People will say that to me. They'll be like, that's amazing. And I appreciate that. Like, that means so much to me, right? But the reality is that one of the reasons why I say congratulations if you have an hour sober, or a day, or 30 days, or 6 months, 6 weeks, or a year. One of the reasons why in recovery programs we honor 30 days, some programs honor 3 months. We honor 6 months, 9 months, a year, 18 months, and multiples of years. One of the reasons why, I have to guess, I don't really actually know this factually, but I have to guess that we don't do like 4 years and 2 months, right? Is because after you hit that 18-month mark, if you're going to meetings and you're working with a sponsor, if that's how you choose to stay sober, right? And you're going to meetings and you're choosing to stay sober and you're doing the work and you're, working a program, the reality is it does get a little bit easier, it really does. And I can tell you, like, my first day sober, my first 3 to 6 months sober were so tough. Like, it was literally hand to mouth of like, not pick up the glass today, not pick up the can today, not pick up the joint today, not pick up the pill today. Like, it was really like, some days were hour by hour. I've shared this story a lot, and I would have on my counter, this is back before, cell phones and stuff, and I had this kitchen counter with these, bar stools on them, and I had my little phone that with the cord that reached around 5 rooms, in it, although I only had 3 rooms in my apartment, but, I'd sit on those bar stools, and I would be craving so bad. I'd be like, oh my God, I just want to drink so bad, or I want to just eat a pill or something like that, right? And it'd be like 3 o'clock. And I would look at the clock in the kitchen. I can remember I had this stove, this old-timey stove and oven underneath it, and had this little round clock on it, right? And I would look at the clock and it'd be like 3:05, and I'd be like, if I can just make it to 3:30, literally, this is at 2 months sober, you guys. I'm like, if I could just make it to 3:30, then at 3:30 I can walk down to the liquor store, because I had a liquor store that was literally right down the street. And there was also a bar in there. Kip's Pub was down the street from me. And it was this other liquor store. I can't remember what it was. It was a huge liquor store. And I was like, if I can just make it to 3:30, then I can go down to the liquor store, I can go to the bar, and I can have a Long Island, or I can have a Jack and Coke, because Jack and Coke was kind of my drink, but something, and then I'd be like, or I can have a Jack and Coke with a shot of Jack, and then a beer. I was fantasizing in my head, right? And then I'll call this person up, and I'll get some weed, and I'll get some pills. I would literally sit there, right? And so on my counter, like I said, this is old days, right? I would have scraps of paper that I had in my wallet, right? That had my dealers' names on them. It wasn't like I had 20 dealers, but 4 numbers of people, right? That I knew would either want to go party with me, and would have party favors and party treats, and bring the party with them. Or, they were dealers of mine that I could call up and they would bring me something in a heartbeat if I had the money, right? Okay. On the other side, I had numbers that people had given me. And in recovery meetings today, typically, we have meeting book schedules where they'll have every meeting in the city for every day. So it'll be Sunday, Saturday, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6. It'll have the name divided up by what part of town it's in. On the back of the book, it'll have a list, and it'll say name, phone number, right? They'll pass those around, or they'll pass a piece of paper around in a meeting, and everybody, if it's a new woman that's in it, so at the beginning of meetings, they'll say, is there anybody that's new to this meeting, or is new to this 12-step program for the very first time? If somebody raises their hand, that's the very first time they've ever come to a 12-step meeting, as an alcoholic, as an addict, as whatever, they will, if it's a woman, they'll pass a sheet of paper around, and because women sponsor women and men sponsor men, with the exception of the fact that men can sponsor lesbians and gay men, and women can sponsor gay men. That's said in the pamphlets about sponsorship. And actually, my sponsor, when I asked her to sponsor me, because I'd had men sponsors, because that's what I was told to do for my entire sobriety till 5-6 years ago when she started sponsoring me. And she said that if I was in early recovery, she probably wouldn't, but because there was a lot of issues with, just being a man versus being a woman. There's a lot of issues that come up with all that kind of like identity stuff in early sobriety. She said, but, being that I have 20-some years of sobriety, she felt a little bit more comfortable about it. But even then, she had to ask her sponsor, and her sponsor had to ask her sponsor, So anyway, but like, if a new person comes to a meeting and they pass around a sheet of paper or this little book that has the sign-in sheet on the back of it, and then all the women in the room will put their phone number, if they want to be of service, put their phone number down and whatever, for that woman, or men will put their numbers down for men, right? And then when you're at home, if you're like craving, you just pick one of those numbers off. You're like, oh, Judy Smith was at that meeting. I really liked what Judy Smith shared. She came up to me afterwards. She was so nice. I'm going to call Judy. And then you call Judy and you're like, Judy, this is so-and-so. I'm really struggling, right? So back in the day, we didn't have those lists. We didn't do those books and stuff like that. Like, you'd share in a meeting, like, this is my first time here. This is my first time to a meeting or whatever. I'm really struggling. And I can remember standing there and literally people would come up to me. Back in the day, people had cards made up, right? Like business cards that would have their name, and it would say like Peter M on it, because we don't typically use our last names in recovery. There's a whole discussion about all that kind of stuff. I don't really care that people know that I'm Peter Monn and I'm an alcoholic and an addict. If it helps one addict out there, one alcoholic, stay alive and seek sobriety, I don't really have an issue with it. Who knows who I am, right? And I think that, I don't know, like the anonymity piece is really not about that, and I think that people get confused about what the anonymity piece is. The anonymity piece is really not to be able to hide in a 12-step program. The anonymity piece is really about, like, okay, if you come in and your name is Rockefeller, then I automatically know that you have $100 million sitting in the bank, and I'm going to look at you differently, right? Like, that's, or who you are, where you come from, or whatever. Like, that's really the anonymity piece, and that none of us unique, and all of our stories are the same to some degree. We've all been there, right? So there's a lot. The anonymity piece is about a lot of different things. And yes, one of them, it is about coming in there and being anonymous and being private. That is a piece, but it's not the only piece of the anonymity piece. But anyway, so I can remember people would have business cards written up that would say like Peter M on it with their phone number, and then it would have the symbol of whatever 12-step program that I had gone to. And I can remember looking at these cards and being like, okay, this is literally like, I mean, we weren't talking about the Illuminati back then, but what were we talking about? Those, what are they called? The foundations or whatever. I mean, I was like, this is like some weird stuff, right? Like, this got the symbol, it's got this triangle on here, it's got this person's name and phone number, and they're like, call me anytime. And I'm like, no, thank you, but okay. And then other people would like be pulling out like, checkbook receipts and writing their name and number on it. Here, call me if you need me and all this kind of stuff. And I did. I called those people because I got so desperate. And I can remember having both pieces of number on either side. And I would say to myself, if you can just make it to 3:30, then you can call one of these dealers over here. You can walk to the liquor store. And so I would look at these numbers over here that I had, whether it was like 5, 10, 15, how many other numbers of people in recovery. And I would just call until I got a hold of somebody. And every person I called was not put off. They didn't act like I was a burden. Many of them offered to come over. Many of them offered to come over and take me someplace, go out to eat, to get my mind off things. And we talk about this 400-pound phone in recovery. It's so hard to pick up the phone and call somebody, and that is so true. Those early days in recovery are unbelievable, unbelievable. Most days, I don't even think, most months, I don't even think about the idea of using again. People ask me all the time, they're like, do you ever think about this? Or when you're out at a restaurant and your husband's having a glass of wine, do you ever think about this and that, and blah, 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 whatever? Rarely, ever, I do, Almost to the point of taking it for granted, if you want to be completely honest about it, There is a saying that the desire is lifted from us. I don't know if that's true. My mom really believed that when she got sober, because she was such a woman of faith, that she believed that her higher power had just lifted the desire to use away from her. My friend Tanya is not like that. My friend Tanya is like, I can be on the beach and a Corona with lime sounds real good, or a Long Island, or whatever, She's like, that doesn't mean that I have to drink it, but I'm not going to lie, And she really helped me with that, because I, for a long time, thought that being an alcoholic or being an addict in recovery meant that we couldn't talk about, because I always thought I had to say the right thing in meetings, right? I was dying inside of meetings, not telling the truth, not sharing the right thing. And so what I realized over time was that I had to tell myself. That was something I learned from Tanya, and I learned from other people in recovery, was you got to share your truth. You got to live out loud. You got to tell it yourself. And so when I would see like Tanya and my friends sharing meetings that, like, you know, yesterday was such a beautiful day and they mowed the lawn, and then when they got done, like a beer sounded so good. And I'd be like, I can't believe they just said that. But I'm thinking like the same thing, right? And I wanted that honesty so bad. There's no shame in talking about craving. There's no shame in talking about wanting to drink, okay? We're addicts and alcoholics because we love to drink and use drugs. It just stopped working for us, or it caused too many problems in our lives. Period. End of story, right? So there's no shame in talking about it. But sometimes when people do talk about it in meetings, people are like, are they really saying that they would love to smoke a joint right now? Like, okay, I have to tell you, there are days that I would love to smoke a joint. That doesn't mean that I have to. That doesn't mean that I choose to. But there's days that it sounds really good to me. You know, there are days that a drink sounds really good. Most times it doesn't, because I think it through really quick. As soon as I said that, the tape ran through my head, and I was like, hangover. Like, how you're going to feel the next day, all the consequences you're going to suffer, what people are going to think, you know? Like, you couldn't even, like, YouTube to some degree, in all honesty, like, I'm not leaning on this for my sobriety because I'm very active in a 12-step program, but I have thought about this from time to time, like, if I ever relapse, which I hope to God I don't, right? But that's why I say I'm in recovery. I'm not recovered, but there's a lot of people in recovery that believe that they are recovered. It says that in our basic text, that you can become recovered from this disease. And one of the reasons I don't say that is a reminder. It's just a personal thing for me, as a reminder to remember that I'm but a drink away from a full relapse, right? Like, it's just, it can be that easy, and I have to be very, very careful about that stuff. And I think about that. And one of the things I think about, you know, it's changed through the years. Like, the things I thought about, like, when I first got sober is, you know, my dad is going to be so pissed he'll never speak to me again, or my mom, or I'll lose that relationship with my dad and my stepmom, or my friends are just going to be completely done. I won't have anybody. How will I support myself? I will have no place to live because my dad told me to get out if I ever go back to you. I mean, that was all it, right? So it's like, through the years, things have changed that have kind of become like a safety net for me. Like, if you use this will happen. And I can remember in early sobriety, you know, we talk about drunk dreams. And I would have dreams where, like, at first it was like, I can remember, like, drinking and using in dreams. Then the next stage of those dreams that happened about 3 to 6 months to a year was like, I wouldn't be drinking or using in the dream. I would wake up and it would be like the day after, not like in real life. In the dream I would wake up and it would be like the day after I had drank or used, and then like people were shouting at me, screaming at me, kicking me out. It was like the day after of all the results of what had happened, and I'm like, I don't even remember drinking or using, and this is, you know. And so it's very scary to me, but I have to say, like, through the years, one of the things that I've added to that list is, how the hell would I ever get on video and ever be able to look at you guys again and be honest if I went back out and used, you know? And if that happens, I hope that I am able to get back into meetings. I hope I'm able to go back to treatment if I, you know, I see friends of mine that have had like 10, 20 years of sobriety, 3 years sober, whatever, and they go back out and like, they come back in a week later and they're going to meetings or they've gone to treatment, and I'm like, I don't know that that would be my story. And the reality is, the friends of mine, I shouldn't say 20 years. The majority of my friends that have gone out between 15 and 25 years, their lives are disastrous today, and they've never come back in. You know, I hope that's not my story. I have to say, getting sober so young, at 22 and a half, I've thought to myself many times, this chair will not stay over here. I've thought to myself many times, well, maybe I'm not an addict. Maybe I'm not an alcoholic, you know? Maybe this was just a time of my life that I was abusing substances. I do believe that there's a difference between substance abuse and chemical dependency. I really do, right? And so I think that, but then I think, okay, if you weren't an alcoholic or an addict, at 28 and a half years sober, you wouldn't be thinking up 28 years and 9 months sober, you wouldn't be thinking up, and I am proud of that time, that's why I say that, you wouldn't be thinking up reasons for why it might be okay for you to drink. Like, a drink wouldn't be that important to you after 28 years plus of sobriety. Like, a joint, a pill wouldn't be that important to you. Like, and you wouldn't be like trying to rationalize it and intellectualize it in your head. You know, I love the saying that people say, like, rationalization, intellectualization, and masturbation, all three, you're screwing yourself. I mean, you wouldn't be thinking that way if you weren't an alcoholic and an addict. Normal people on the street don't think to themselves those things, you know, like reasons why they need to have a beer today. I mean, like, normal people don't think that way. People that don't have addiction issues don't think that way. And I'm fully aware of that, you know? So I don't need to go out there and test it. I also don't need to go out there and test it because my entire life is built on the foundation of recovery. I would literally lose everything. I mean, you know, one of the things that I made Alex promise me before we got married was that if I ever picked up again, he would leave. And he was like, with certainty, your dad has talked to me, your family has talked to me, your friends have talked to me, I would leave in a heartbeat. I could not stick around even though I wasn't there for your sobriety, you know, or there when you were using. So I know I would lose Alex, you know, I would lose my friends that I built in sobriety. I would lose all my sober friends. Many of my friends that aren't sober today, I would lose YouTube. I'd probably lose my house. I mean, I can't go back to that. Like, that terrifies me. I mean, that almost moves me to tears to think about it, right? Because I think about, like, I'm so proud of myself for how far I've come. But at the same time, I'm very cognizant of how easy it is to lose it all. And yet, at this point in recovery, I take it for granted sometimes. You know, I don't even really think about how hard it is, which is scary. So, I think one of the things that makes me the happiest, and this is why I started this whole video, was when people say, I've got 6 months sober, you know? And a lot of people will say, I got 6 months sober and you really helped me with this. Listen, I'm not doing anything but share my story, okay? When people share this and they say this, you know what? You sharing that comment out there, if somebody is reading that comment and they're like, wow, this person's staying sober for 6 months and their goal is a year, if they can do it, maybe I can do it. You're planting the seed just by leaving a comment on my video. I don't know that you even realize that, the implications that are so powerful, that by just leaving a comment on there, okay, and saying, I got sober 6 months ago, I'm so proud of you. When people leave me comments and they say, I've been sober for the same amount of time as you, or I've been sober for 22 years, or I've been sober for 22 hours, or I've been sober for a month, or we are all miracles. We are all miracles that have stayed sober, no matter how long you've stayed sober, right? We just have today. We have a daily reprieve from using, and we're all miracles. And it's hard, but the lives that we get in exchange for this are absolutely amazing, you know? My old sponsor used to say, I have a life beyond my wildest dreams as a result of this program. I have a life beyond my wildest dreams. And no, it's not perfect every single day, but I have a life beyond my wildest dreams as a result of sobriety. And I want that for each and every one of you out there that is struggling as well. And when I do it in a video, when I say it in a video, like the other day on my drama video where I said something about sober fam sound off, and all these people are talking about their sobriety in the comment sections below, it just like lights me up, right? It just like lights up my eyes and makes me so happy. Because what I see there are so many people out there that are staying sober, you know? You're not alone. And there's a lot of people out there that are still struggling that say, I'm not there yet. But thank you for sharing their stories because you guys are helping me. You're helping somebody by leaving a comment. You're turning your wounds into wisdom, and that's super powerful. And if there hadn't been people there for me when I first got sober that weren't just sharing their stories, coming up to me and being like, hey, I so relate to you. I got sober at 22. Like, if I didn't hear those things, you know, I was looking for the differences, not the similarities. And people, like, handed me similarities, you know, in a silver platter. And I could start seeing that, hey, well, I'm in these people, even if they're 84, even if they're 30, even if they're, you know, my age or 24 or whatever, like, or if they're 70. Like, there's some similarities here. And by them allowing themselves to turn their wounds into wisdom and share their story, you know, there's no greater power than one addict sharing with another or one alcoholic sharing with another. Because nobody gets our stories like we do. So thank you so much for sharing your comments and sharing your sobriety time, you know? And little by little, maybe one person out there will get sober today, you know? As a result of seeing your comment on a video. I hope so. That is a miracle. I love you guys so much, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.